أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره ولا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان إني أراكم بخير وإني أخاف عليكم عذاب محيط صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, a second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Inshallah, in the hopes that we wake up from the post-night of Qadr fatigue, and for the hastening of the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajjal farajah. Yes, the fatigue after the nights of Qadr is a real thing. Today, inshallah, we'll continue the stories of the prophets that we were discussing with the story of a special servant of God and a special prophet of God, and that is Shu'ayb, a prophet whose name is mentioned 11 times in different verses of the Quran, and one that some have said identifies with a character that is also mentioned in the Bible by the name of Jethro. There are some doubts about this identification, and hence we are not 100% sure about it, but it seems as though the person that the Bible speaks about as the person by the name of Jethro seems to be the prophet Shu'ayb that you and I hear of in the verses of the Quran. Shu'ayb, of course, was one of the children of Ibrahim through a number of generations. And of course, his time coincides with the time of Musa, because we read in the Quran that when he was fleeing from the people of the Pharaoh and he had nowhere to go, he came to the city of Madyan, or the land of Madyan, and he had that conversation and that interaction with Shu'ayb, and eventually Shu'ayb became the father-in-law of Musa. Hence his time and the time of Musa were almost at the same time. They coincided, and he, of course, was a prophet before Musa became a prophet. And some have said that this speaks to the great status of Shu'ayb, that in many ways he turned into a mentor and a teacher for Musa, because when Musa came to Madyan, he was not a prophet yet. And in fact, in many ways, he was homeless. He had no belongings. He had nothing to turn towards. And when he was walking away from Madyan, all of a sudden he had a wife and he had a family and he was having children and so on and so forth. And this prophet Shu'ayb that we'll be discussing today, inshallah, I'm sure it's interesting for us to know, he is the person who plays a critical role in the faith known as the Duruz. The Duruz faith is a faith that is a monotheistic faith, and within it you find elements of different faiths and different religions. Some elements from Christianity, some elements from Islam, some elements from Judaism as well. And this faith of Duruz is one that during the past number of years, especially when ISIS was at its very peak, you would hear this name a lot, and mainly because their main population is found in Syria and in Lebanon and those parts of the world. However, the more important thing for us, more important than Shu'ayb himself, was the people of Madyan. The reason why their story is very interesting, and we'll discuss it tonight and tomorrow night, is because there is an element as part of their practice that led to their punishment eventually, that many other people who were punished based on the verses of the Quran did not used to commit. And this made the people of Shu'ayb a very unique people. That was that their sin, unlike many other tribes, was of economic and financial essence and nature. And the way they used to interact with other people when they used to buy and sell. Many of the other stories that the Quran tells, typically this is not their main sin. Typically there's other sins that they are involved with. And hence this makes the story of Shu'ayb and the people of Madyan a very interesting story. Because the people of Madyan and their city lied to the east of the Gulf of Aqaba. If you look on the map today, you will find that this is roughly around where the borders of Palestine and Jordan and Saudi Arabia start to intersect with each other. And because of their position, they were in a position where people used to come with their caravans and they used to pass through this area. They were travelers. And because they were traveling, they had needs to buy and sell certain items that you couldn't carry with yourself back in the day. Hence the main work of the people of Shu'ayb was this buying and selling and tijara that they used to do. And this is where their fault lied. Therefore, the story of Shu'ayb is a very interesting one and a very relatable one for us in keeping our promises and never cheating people, both on a financial level, as we will discuss, and even greater in other aspects of life as well. And in order to discuss his story, we'll pose the following questions. Number one, other than worshiping the idols, which we will speak about Shu'ayb, the people of Shu'ayb used to do, what was their main pitfall? What was the main sin that they used to commit? Number two, what did Shu'ayb tell his people about the halal income that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to them? And how this halal income can have a greater barakah in their lives than the haram income that they try to achieve through cheating people through their merchandise and their business. Number three, why were the people of Shu'ayb surprised when Shu'ayb used to come to them and tell them to fix their business transactions? Why were they surprised that the religion of Shu'ayb is now encouraging him to intervene in societal affairs versus religion being something personal you do in the corner of your house and you don't care about what's happening around you within society? And number four, and finally, why would Shu'ayb constantly emphasize to his people that he was only speaking the truth to guide them and that none of what he said to them came from himself and that none of his objections to them were from a personal perspective? What was the point that Shu'ayb was making by making it clear that none of this is personal and that he is only obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this process? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these four questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. We'll begin here. The story of Shu'ayb and the people of Madyan begins from that area where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that their main sin was an economic and financial sin. And what was the people of Madyan doing because of their position? When people were traveling and naturally they were desperate because they needed different items that they hadn't brought along with themselves, the people of Madyan and the people of Shu'ayb used to cheat other people in their business transactions. So the Quran, other than talking about the fact that they used to worship the idols, the Quran immediately starts to talk about the idea that these individuals were individuals who, in their business transactions, when they were measuring the goods that they wanted to sell, if they were selling, they would measure their own a little less. So if this person was supposed to give you food, for example, loaves of bread, and you were paying him, instead of 5 loaves of bread that he owed you, all of a sudden it's 4, it's 3.5. And they used to use methods of cheating other people that Shu'ayb pointed out and called out. So they had their own ways of doing this. And if they were buying from you something they needed from you, because part of business is you buy merchandise and then you sell it, yes? So they were buying merchandise as well. When they were buying merchandise, they used to use and exploit the desperate situation that other people were in to buy things at the lowest of prices, at a price where this person almost is selling his livelihood to you, and he's going to walk away with nothing. But what can he do? He's desperate. So because they would find that this person is desperate, they would push even more. So the Quran jumps into this immediately. Quran says, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا. We sent their brother Shu'ayb to the people of Madyan. First thing he told them, you have to worship God, you're not supposed to worship anybody else. This was number one. And then he moved on and he said, here's what you're doing wrong. وَلَا تَنْقُصُ الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانِ. And when you're using your units of measurement, don't start playing with them. Don't start messing with them. So you know the units of measurement back in the day, and even during the time of the Prophet, were of two types. Mainly, either you were selling things based on their volume and their mass, or you were selling things based on what? Their weight. So you had mikyal and mizan. Kail is when you start to sell things based on volume. Yes, we have gallons and then we have pounds. Yes, gallons is the volume of something you sell. And then mizan, and what you weigh, is of course based on the weight, which is a lot of other things that we buy and sell nowadays. So Shu'ayb told them, لا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان. When you're measuring things, don't start taking away from it. Don't add to your own side. ولا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان. إني أراكم بخير. You all have a great business. You have a great life. People need you because you're in demand. People need your business. But here's the thing. The way you're doing things, إني أخاف عليكم عذاب محيط. I am worried that that day will come, عذاب يوم محيط, that day will come where your punishment comes. It is muhit. Ihata means when you encompass something, meaning there's no running away from it. It will take you in. Yes, it will swallow you. He said, I'm worried about this. And this issue in our narrations and in the verses of the Quran, left and right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes back to this issue. That when you're doing your business transactions, you have to be very careful. You gave this promise to this person, I'm going to give you this. You better do exactly as you had told them. And this is why in the 30th juz you find a verse of the Quran, yes, by the name of Suratul Mutaffifin, the surah of those who sell less and give less than what they had promised to you. And the Quran continues, there's a number of verses it goes through, and then the Quran says, yes, ثُمَّ إِنَّهُمْ لَصَالُ الْجَحِيمِ. The people who are like this, they will have to deal with the punishment of hellfire. And you start to see a full picture of Islam, and not just a picture where it only cares about whether you pray or not. Only cares about whether you do a'mal or not. Only cares about how you dress. These are part of Islam. There's no doubt about it. These are important parts of Islam. But then Islam is a comprehensive message. It is a comprehensive system. Hence you find the first Imam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi salamu alayhi. The narration says he used to walk around in the bazaar of Kufa, and he had with him, yes, a whip. Now this whip, if they give you and I a whip, God knows what's going to happen. Yes? The whip that Ali carried was a sign to the powerful in society to not allow for them to take advantage of the weak in society. He was the Khalifa. So when he carried a whip with himself, it meant that, listen, you are going to be held accountable if you do wrong things. There's weak people here, there's poor people here, there's vulnerable people, you will be held accountable. So multiple narration says when he used to walk in the bazaar, he had a whip with him, not in the sense that he was whipping people, in the sense that he was signaling to the powerful that you're going to be held accountable. So he used to walk in the bazaar every morning, and he would turn to the sellers, who of course are typically the people who have the upper hand. They're the ones who have the advantage, because when you're the main person who's well known for selling a product, yes, now you have somewhat of a monopoly around you. People come to you all the time, so on and so forth. He used to go around to them and you say a number of teachings he would remind them of. And of them were the following. Number one, he would say, be careful that you do not do injustice to people, that you do not lie to people, that you do not swear as part of your selling and buying, and make sure that when you're weighing things, you weigh them properly. This was an important recommendation that Ahl Bayt went back to over and over again. This is why if you open our books of hadith, in our books of fiqh, you will find sections of fiqh, discussions, long discussions on, for example, if I want to sell something that is normally weighed, can I sell it based on the volume and not based on the weight? Well, why does Islam even care about this? Because sometimes the person who's buying, his rights will be trampled if you do this. And so companions used to come to the Prophet, or the children of the Prophet, the Ahlul Bayt, say, Ya ibn Rasulullah, if I'm selling, but I'm going to use this unit of measurement, is that okay? And the Imam will say, yes, it's okay, or it's not okay. And you find in the bazaar, the Imams used to tell people that you're supposed to use the main measurement and the main unit of measurement. You're not supposed to use your own unit of measurement. So he used to say, if you're going to sell based on ratl, use the ratl of this area. This is a unit of measurement that was known of that area. Why? Because if you're using some other unit of measurement, you can cheat this person out of his wealth. You can trick this person. Yes, I'm going to give you 5 cups. Okay, which cup? The cup of Kufa or the cup of another place? Multiple narrations talk about it. Sections of fiqh are, allocated to this issue of the mikyal and mizan, what you sell through the volume and what you sell through the weight. So Ali used to walk in the bazaar. And of course, this issue of mikyal and mizan, you and I don't deal with it anymore. Nowadays, a lot of things aren't even sold this way anymore. Maybe a little bit through weights, but usually we don't deal with this issue anymore. This is why Islam has to be seen in a greater context as well. Because when Islam emphasizes mikyal and mizan so much, Islam is talking about keeping your commitments. That's the issue at the core. And if that's the issue at the core, you find narrations from the Ahlul Bayt saying harsh words about the one who breaks the trust of others and betrays the trust of others. And hence, Shaykh al-Saduq has narrated in his wonderful book known as the Book of Khisal, the Book of Attributes. He says this Book of Attributes is very interesting. It starts from number 1. All the narrations where the Ahlul Bayt said you should have this one characteristic, or you should stay away from this one character. And then chapter number 2 starts. All the narrations where the Ahlul Bayt say you should have these 2 characteristics. This is how the book goes, yes? He gets to number 4, chapter number 4, yes? The 4 characteristics he narrates that the Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he said, "Arba'un man kunna fi fahuwa munafiq." There's 4. If these 4 are found within a person, he is munafiq, even if he comes and he says, I'm Muslim, and I'm mu'min, and I'm a believer, and all of this. So what are the 4? The narration says, number 1, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذِبَ. When he speaks, he lies. These are signs of nifaq. Number 2, وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ. When he makes a commitment, doesn't follow through with it. Number 3, وَإِذَا عَاهَدَ غَدَرَ. When he makes a promise, he betrays people. Number 4, وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرَ. When he's on the enemy side, when he's on the other side of the table, yes, he will not stop at anything to destroy you. Yes, when you do business, there's always someone on the other side of the table. It says when this person ends up on the other side of the table, he won't stop at anything until he becomes victorious, until he walks away with what he wanted to walk away with. Yes? There's halal ways of doing business. There's details to it, complexities to it, so on and so forth. And then there are ways where you're willing to destroy the other side. You don't care. This is what you see with these corporations nowadays. Yes? This is what you see. They are willing to destroy thousands of businesses. And if you say, hey, this may not be the best of ideas, they say, listen, this is business and that's it. And he's right. That's how business works. Except there's supposed to be some morals to this business idea too, yes? There's supposed to be some ethics within it as well. Hey, listen, your workers are dying every day, so do you want to do something about this? That's how business is. And then when you come to Shu'ayb and his story, you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us the ethics of how we do business. And this needs to be, of course, a separate topic and a separate series, inshallah, and we'll get to it later on. But then Shu'ayb said this. He said, وَلَا تَنْقُصُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ وَأَوْفُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Yes, do it properly, weigh things properly. Then he moved on to the next issue that they had. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُم. Don't cheat people out of the items that they bring to you because they're desperate. Because they have nowhere to go. In the middle of nowhere, this guy, you see him, you know that he needs this money or this other item in return. Because you know he needs it and you know he's desperate, then you put your foot on him and you press even more and more and more. Now, we have narrations that it is okay to ask for a discount. It is okay to push a little bit, especially when you're being sold a higher price. Many times when you go back home, the price is not even the price that this person is saying. He's already put in a 20%, yes, for you to ask for that discount. That's why I always wondered why my parents, when they go into the store back home, first thing they say, okay, what about the special discount? So what special discount is there? Yes, because this seller already knows. He's already built in a 20%, 10%, 15% into the price. These are unfortunate things, of course. So narrations tell us you are allowed to push back a little bit. But narrations teach us you're not allowed to push back and take away from the value that this item actually has so much just because he is desperate. And especially when the person you are dealing with is a person who generally is a good person, generally is a person who is not as strong, as wealthy as other people within society might be. So I'll share this with you. And then I want to talk about being desperate in a greater sense, not just financially. In other ways, there are times where people are desperate and you and I pressure them. So we're going to get to that in just a second. And the narration says this person came to the sixth Imam, Al-Imam As-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He said, Yabna Rasulullah. And this hadith comes up in the topic of dreams as well, from a different angle. He said, Yabna Rasulullah, I had a dream. I need you to interpret this dream for me. So what was your dream? He said, I was walking. It was a scary dream. I was walking, and I saw someone behind me is coming, as if he has a sword in his hand. I couldn't see who it was or what was going on. It looked like a shabah to me. It looked like something that I couldn't really tell. Yes, it was vague, as dreams normally are. But I could tell he is coming to kill me. What's the interpretation of this dream? And the Imam told him, he said, you know what the problem is? You are trying to kill someone in your life. He said, no, Yabna Rasulullah, I would never do such a thing. He said, think a little bit harder. You've never had an intention to take things away from people? Then he remembered. He said, yes, I have a neighbor. He had some items he wanted to sell, but he was desperate. And I knew no one else is going to come buy these items. Nobody else. So he had already given me a good price. But then I pushed more and pressed him more and pressed him more until it reached a point where it almost felt as if he would walk away with nothing. Then I told him, okay, now I'll buy it from you. And the Imam said, that neighbor of yours, he was a lover of ours, no? I said, yes, he was a lover of yours. So he was from those who had, love for the Ahlul Bayt. So this person turned to him, to the Prophet, to the Imam. He said, Yabna Rasulullah, if he wasn't a lover, if I had done that, would have that been wrong? He said, no, it's worse that he was a lover. But even if he wasn't a lover of ours, and even if he was a normal person who didn't even know about us, still you wouldn't have the right to do what you had done. He said, this is the interpretation of your dream because it's like you were trying to kill that person. Why? Because he was desperate. Okay. Then there are times where this person is desperate not from a financial perspective. Desperate in other senses of the word. And you and I will continue to pressure him. Your spouse, your child, your parent might be sensitive when it comes to certain issues. So all of us have certain buttons that if you push, you might get a reaction. Because that part hurts for whatever reason. And in fact, you might be right about what you're saying. You might be right about what you're saying. But this person has a sensitivity in their heart when it comes to this issue. They're desperate because you have the upper hand now. And in fact, you're right in what you're saying. So this person is late. And they're late all the time. So you're right. Except the moment you tell them, oh, you're late again. Didn't I tell you? This is that. They're sorry already, but you're going to now do what? Now you're going to add salt to that wound and keep going. And sometimes a spouse or a child might have certain insecurities. They're insecure about certain things. So one step is to tell them, listen, what you did was wrong, and you move on. The other step is, because now they're down, Now you press on them, yes? They're insecure about this issue, so now you're going to keep going back at it again. Well, you know they're insecure about this issue. Why do you keep bringing it up? Oh, I'm bringing it up because I'm right, even if you're right. Maybe you can bring it up a little less. Maybe you can talk about it a little. Maybe you can be a little bit kinder about it. Maybe you can be a little bit careful about what you say. When you see someone in life is desperate, the normal way of looking at it is, this is an opportunity for me to take advantage of it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in narrations that the way you're supposed to look at it is that because this person is desperate, this is my opportunity to get on God's good side. It's a completely different perspective. When someone comes to you and they are desperate and they have nowhere else to go, this is the sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are to take advantage of this opportunity. What? To push them down? No. To get on God's good side. So the narration says this man came to Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He came to the first Imam. He said, Ya Ali, I have a haja, and I brought this haja to you. So the Imam told him, he said, let me ask you something. Out of everyone else that you could have gone to, you found me worthy of bringing your haja to me. In other words, he's desperate. He has nowhere else to go. He said, yes, Ya Ali, only you. He said, Jazakallahu khayra. He said, may Allah bless you, because I heard the Prophet said that when people come to you and they are desperate, this is God's amanah to you. This is God sending you that person. Yes, when people are desperate, it's absolutely an opportunity to take advantage of, but not take advantage of them. Take advantage of this opportunity to get on God's good side. And you will see there are many people in today's world who are desperate. Sometimes financially, sometimes in other ways, sometimes in other forms. So he said, وَلَا تَبْخَسُ النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. When people come to you and they're desperate, don't cheat them out of their wealth. Yes. He continued, he said, وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. And do not create corruption like this on earth. Because this is one of the greatest corruptions that can happen on earth. He continued to them before we hear their response. He said, وَاتَّقُوا الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ وَالْجِبِلَّةَ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And fear the God who created you all and all of the people who came before you. What is Shu'ayb saying? Shu'ayb is essentially saying, listen, don't think you're the first one who's doing this. There's a lot of people came before you, thought they could get away with this too. You know, sometimes you might see people breaking the law, right? When they're not supposed to, they're breaking the law. There's a police officer sitting in the corner. So the first car comes, he sees this lane is open. He's not supposed to go. But then he sees the lane open, he goes, the police officer pulls him over. Second person, third person. If you stand around there for a little bit longer, after a while, when the car pulls up, you're like, don't do this. There's like 50 other people came, that made the same mistake you're making. But this guy thinks he's a genius. He thinks nobody else thought about this, yes? He thinks, this is the way nobody else thought about. And you're just sitting there and saying, listen, there was a bunch of people came before you. They made the same mistake you're making. And Shu'ayb is telling his people, there's a bunch of people came before you. They made the same mistake. They disobeyed God and they thought they could get away with it. Don't think you're the first person who's doing this. Learn from the people who came before you. This is what Shu'ayb told his people. Then he ended with this line. بَقِيَّةُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. He said, listen, if you don't cheat them out of their wealth, what will happen? You'll walk away with your halal profit. You're making profit. There's no problem with that. You're making your profit. That's what business is all about. So many narrations say, mustahab to do business, yes? Okay. He said, do your business, take your halal profit. And I'll tell you what, if you just take your halal profit, baqiyatullah, the amount that God has kept for you in that profit, khayrun lakum, it's blessed for you. Take a look at what Shu'ayb is saying. He's saying that money ends up in your pockets from halal, that is God putting that in your pockets. It's not charity. What is it? It's profit you're making. And Shu'ayb is still saying, who put that in your pocket? God is putting it in your part. That's how holy it is. That's how blessed it is. Because you could have cheated people and you could have gone down the wrong road. But you did it the right way. You did it the right way. Great. The blessing you walk away with, God had ordained that for you specifically. But y'all know I'm not giving charity. I'm not giving away from my rights. This doesn't matter. You're doing things properly. Baqiyatullah, that money that ended up in your hands, God put it in your hands. That's how holy it is. That's how blessed it is. That is why narration after narration says, go out and work hard, and then you will see the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in your wealth. If you do things properly, then the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put in your wealth. And this is why multiple narrations of the Ahlul Bayt teach us, listen, don't sit there and expect for the wealth to come. No, you're supposed to go and work hard. So the companion of the sixth Imam came to him. He said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, you pray, whatever he prays, of course God is going to listen to, yes? He said, Ud'u Allah an yarzuqani fi da'atin. Oh Allah, Ya ibn Rasulullah, pray that God gives me rizq without the headache. Without the planning and strategizing and how am I going to do this and the sweating and all of this kind of stuff. Let's just pray that he gives me my rizq. And some narrations say the Imam responded to him quickly. He said, I will not pray for this. But wait, he's not asking for anything bad. He said, I will pray that you go and work hard and then God gives you your sustenance. Islam has emphasized this so much. And of course, this is a responsibility that lies on our men's shoulders and on the husbands. And this is one of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken of very highly. And to the sisters I say, if there's ever a guy that you are looking at, yes, as a prospect, and he asks you this question, if he asks you this question, run. If he asks you, yes, inshallah, when we get married, how are you going to help with paying the bills? Run. This is a big red flag. This is a responsibility Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on the shoulder of the man. Now, if a sister wants to work or doesn't want to work, that's her option, and with her husband she can decide that, and so on and so forth. But in a marriage, it's a husband. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has held the men accountable to this, and He has placed a great reward for it at the same time. Hence the narration of the Prophet salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He says, Man bata kallan, the one who comes home at night and he goes to sleep and he's tired from the work that he did. He was at work, the boss gave him trouble. He was at work, the co-worker who doesn't do anything, wasn't doing anything, he had to do their work for them, yes? Sometimes you'll see people's bosses, they don't do nothing. He says, I'm managing stuff, and this poor guy has to run around and do everything else. All the difficulties and headaches that come with work, yes? All of these things. The narration of the Prophet says, when you come home and you have that headache, and you go to sleep, bata marhuman maghfura, you're forgiven that night. Why? Because you were out there working for your family. You were out there working to bring peace and tranquility to your family. And of course that happens through your akhlaq as well. It goes through the amount of time you spend with your family as well. All of those things. But your financial responsibility is one of the main ones of these. Yes? So the narration says when he comes home at night and he goes to sleep, he is sleeping forgiven on that night. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And to the family members of this person, most times it might be the man, sometimes it might even be the mother, because sometimes the realities of life might dictate that the family needs a little bit more help, so on and so forth. You need to appreciate this work that happens. When the father comes home, he is to be given appreciation, respect. If the mother is doing this, then a whole lot more. Sometimes you will find, and this is something you find in the culture within the society that we live in. The children are taught what? Oh yeah, your dad's supposed to do this. Yeah, your mother, yeah, of course. Yeah, speak back to them. Yeah, it's part of your rights. Yes. What, your mother came and said, you can't do this, you can't do that? Oh no, she's in your space. You're not allowed to speak, you're just not supposed to allow her to tell you how to live your life. This is part of the culture in society. Part of the culture in society is your father comes home, you don't care. You're on the phone, you're watching something, yeah, who cares? It's just Baba. Wait till you become Baba. Then when you come home, tired with that headache, yes, exhausted, and then you come home, and for the youngsters I say this, yes, and for those of us who are older and we still have our parents around, yes, when your father comes home and he's deep down, he's saying, I went and worked so hard for this family. When I walk into this house, it's almost as if nothing happened. No greeting, no, I hope, your day went well, no kindness, no. This is not what Ahl Bayt taught us. Yes. And of course, when the mother does work in the house, same thing. Appreciation and the lack of it is the main reason why people get burnt out in life. The main reason why people get burnt out in life is not the hard work that they do. The main reason why they throw in the towel and they say enough is enough is because there's a lack of appreciation most of the times. This person is killing himself, and then he comes home, and then these children are taking everything for granted. We're going to go here for this vacation. Oh, but last year we went there, so now we're going to go to this, like the same thing? I don't know if this is not what Islam taught us. Shu'ayb said, Baqiyatullahi khayrun lakum. When you go and work hard for your family, that money is blessed. You're not giving charity. You're not taking away from your own rights and giving it to somewhere else. You're not like Imam Ali who didn't have food in his own house and giving the food of his child to someone. You're not doing any of these things. But it's still blessed, and that money came to you from God. God had ordained for that money to be in your pocket. That is how blessed it is. Baqiyatullahi khayrun lakum in kuntum mu'minin. So the people of Shu'ayb came back to him with this, and with this I will end. قالوا يا شعيب أصلاتك تأمرك أن نعبد ما يعبد آباؤنا. Wait a second, Shu'ayb, we don't understand, we're confused. You say you're a person of faith. So if you're a person of faith, that means you pray and you fast and you do all this kind of stuff. Why are you talking about what we do? What does it have to do with you, what happens in society? You're a person of faith. Okay, faith is a personal matter, meaning you should not care at all what happens within society. We sell people less or more. We cheat people out of their rights. We oppress people. We take from them. This has nothing to do with your salat. You want to do your salat? Go do your salat. And the understanding that the people of Shu'ayb had of religion was the same understanding that some of our people have of religion. That religion is that thing that only shows up on the night of Qadr in the corner of your house. It never again shows up in your interactions with people. It never again shows up in how you treat your family members, how you treat your relatives, in your business interactions, in your travel, in this and that. Oh, no. Your salat, yeah, salat is that thing we do in the little room, and then when we're done, you come out, you're pure and you're forgiven, and then you go back to the same sins that you used to do. This is religion. This limited understanding of religion. And what did Shu'ayb go back to them with? And why is it that out of everything that Shu'ayb used to do, they pinpointed the salat of Shu'ayb? These are points that inshallah tomorrow we will get into. With that inshallah we'll bring tonight's talk into an end. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Let us take a moment to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. For all of your marhumin and marhumat, especially the marhumin and marhumat of the sponsors of tonight's program, with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.